Drop down. Leapfrog. Drop kick. It's the Drop Down Leapfrog Dropkick Wrestling Podcast, hosted by the Golden Child, John Bivens.
John, it's been a long damn time.
Too long, Chris.
It's been a long time. Welcome back to another episode of Drop Down
Leapfrog Dropkick Wrestling Podcast.
Yeah, because, I don't do none of that, so you should know how to, that's the guy right there he came up with the name, and we do drop down leapfrogs and drop pop kicks and all that good stuff. John, since the last time you saw this young man, you see now he's clean cut, all this, handsome John Bivens. So, anyway, John, we're going to talk about 2 weeks of AEW wrestling, but the main thing is last night, because of course we know what happened with All In, broke major records, major heat, lost a certain guy that has a drink tattooed on his arm, and I'm heartbroken. However, I think it's a work. I don't care what nobody say. This is a work. This is a work. This is a work. John?
As a disclaimer for anybody that doesn't know Chris personally, he thinks that everything's a work because he's been telling me pretty much everything that happened with CM Punk since he came back to AEW was a work. So.
And what has happened though? Has it came to fruition when I say it?
You're batting about 250, Chris.
No.
I'd say about a quarter of what you've actually predicted has come true. But yeah, in case you've been living under a rock, I'm sure everybody knows by now, CM Punk gone from AEW. I think that was long overdue because we had actually talked about doing a podcast last week, and then Chris flaked on me. So that's part of the reason why it's been so long in between takes. But we were going to talk about it last week after All In. I was busy too, Chris, but I still set aside time for the podcast. But anyways.
John, you came down here to eat at a retirement party, and you just happened to be... Anyway, we'll get past that.
But I was going to talk about after All In, what is it going to take for them to finally let CM Punk go? And in a way, it feels strange that it ever actually happened because it seems like something... I don't know. Not all the full details are out at this time, but it seems like it was something relatively minor considering the fact that, this time last year, there was a literal all-out fist fight, with biting and chairs and all of that, and that wasn't what was the undoing. It was just a skirmish with Jungle Boy, of all people, that finally got CM Punk out of AEW. What's...
Jack Perry.
Let's talk about...
Jack Perry.
Chris, let's say that it isn't a work. What is your initial feeling when you hear the news?
Well, when I first heard the news, I was matter of fact, I heard the news from you because you sent me a screenshot. I was busy doing other stuff, and like I always am, Rapco Media, rapcomedia.com, on LinkedIn. Yeah, that's where I work. And then I do something else part-time. But anyway, it was surreal. I don't know what to say. I was like, this finally happened. And I'm like, I look at all the financials that's tied up to it. I look at all the ratings that it gets, that he generates. I look at they basically built a damn show for him. So when I go and I say, well, I feel this will work, I say that not just because now, I say that not just to be fooling around. I say that because I'm like, man, it's a lot went into this whole situation with CM Punk, Collision, Saturday Night Wrestling. A whole lot went into it. So now to go back and just say, well, we're done, I cannot say, I know Tony Khan, as him being the owner and the GM and everything, saying it was ultimately his decision. However, when you look at all the finances behind it, with also the contract and how everything is structured, that what leads me to say is more, and more likely it's not, but that what leads me to say is more a possibility of it working than anything, because it's just a lot tied up to that and tied to that one gentleman. So I'm like, what? And then by it being something that happened, back, like you say, minor. It's like this, that, and whatever. But now, I've been reading and I've been hearing it was like a little more than that.
Yeah, he jumped at Tony Khan or something like that.
Tony Khan and whatever. So a lot of people, when they make decisions, they don't make the decision until it personally affects them.
Right.
So when it personally affects them, then they make those decisions. As long as there's something else going on, no big deal. But when it personally embarrasses them or affects them physically, that when they make those decisions. So that's probably what happened, because now you making your owner look weak. Yeah, right. The general manager look weak. The head of creative look weak. You making everybody look weak that's in those positions. And of course, you got to look at Time Warner looking at what. So, that's one of the things I'm like, wow. I like CM Punk. But it was it was bound to happen, because it's always like a little poke and bear thing. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, oh well.
Well, the argument that I was going to talk about last week is, Chris, you're a lot more of a sports guy than I am. I watch wrestling a little, like maybe 2 baseball games a year, and then a little bit of college football. But I don't follow. I'm not a stats guy. But I think if you look at the greater scheme, if you're looking at AEW as, to an extent, a sports company, they're sports and entertainment, but a sports company overall, I don't think there's ever been a precedent where you look at any major star that draws ratings as an athlete. Not talking about necessarily somebody who's the best in the field, but ratings draws as far as like, people want to see Michael Jordan. People want to see LeBron James. People want to see Tiger Woods. You look at people like that and you see, yes, guys at the top do get a little bit more leash to go out and do things in their personal life. If you are an underneath guy, if you're just a rank and file guy in the NBA, and you go out and you get in whatever kind of trouble it is, drunk drive, whatever you want to say, some type of skirmish, that person is gone, because you're held to a different standard. But you look at CM Punk and him being at the top of AEW, you still look at like any major athlete that's been in a company for a long time. If LeBron James refused to go to practice because he didn't like somebody that was on his team, or he had an issue with the GM, do you think he'd still be in the position that he's in? Do you think Tom Brady, if he, had beef with somebody in management or whatever it was, if there was an issue with him every single game during the regular season, do you think that they would be kept on a team?
Of course, now it depends on. It has been situations where, and it don't work out well, but it has been situations where it's been said that certain players can say certain things to management and the coach is out the door.
Right.
But just know, when the coach is out the door, not many coaches gonna go out the door. Sooner or later, you're gonna be out the door.
Right.
So I see where you're coming from when you're talking about that, as far as with CM Punk. So, because one thing I have to say, no one particular person should be bigger than the brand.
Exactly.
And that what was happening. I mean, if to be honest, when you're looking at as far as ratings and people seeing what CM Punk there, are they watching to see how you gonna perform or what he gonna say?
Right. Yeah.
So, and I'm a big Punk fan, but is he gonna say something or is he gonna wrestle good? I mean, come on, which one is it? So, they got to that point, and even though even though it's supposed to be the situation with Jack Perry or what have you, but I feel some other people got really affected mostly the owner, and that's why it went down the route that it did.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of like what we were talking about off the air though the other day. Is I was saying to you about what was left for CM Punk in AEW, because they were doing the angle with the real world championship that was going to have to be paid off at some point, and it looked like it was going to be Max. And in a way, I kind of have a conspiracy theory that we were probably supposed to get Punk and Max in Chicago. That just the short turnaround time, between last weekend All In and this weekend All Out, it seemed like AEW's never booked a pay-per-view like this before, where it's just been sort of a lackluster card and a lackluster build from top to bottom. So it makes me think that they did have something bigger in the works, and maybe we were going to get that payoff, and then real life stepped in, and there was nothing they could do about it. But for CM Punk, I don't know what there was left for him, because with all of his history, there was no way if he wrestled Max that if I was Tony Khan that I would put the World Championship on Punk. Because you've already done that, and he had the injuries, last year when all that happened. And then just the way that things have been backstage, I don't think there's any reason why you would want to put your major singles championship on a guy that you can't have full faith in.
Right. And
so the options for him were to go in and lose to Max, and then from there, what else do you do with him? Because it's not like they could have programmed him with the Young Bucks and Omega, because that was still going on.
Right.
You're not going to program him with Hangman. He's already feuded with Ricky Starks. There wasn't a whole lot of matches left on the table. So for anyone that's saying the sky's falling because Punk's gone from AEW, which, I don't know how many people there are. I haven't read any discussions online that, everybody thinks AEW's doomed now because Punk's gone. But I don't.
Last night pay-per-view proved that. Yeah.
Definitely, and we'll get into that in a minute. But I think in some ways it's a big net positive for them. And the other thing that I'll say, jumping ahead a little bit, is at the very beginning of All In, there was somebody on the front row, I don't know if you saw it or not, but somebody had a big sign that said, Tony Khan has found the cure for cancer. And so to me, in CM Punk's hometown, for somebody to be holding up a sign like that, I don't think there's ever been a wrestler in my lifetime that's been synonymous with a city like CM Punk in Chicago. I mean, that's their guy. And to see someone like that holding up a sign in the front row, it's like, if you don't have your hometown behind you, that they've been like this for years. Yeah. If your hometown's against you, it speaks to your character a little bit. I think.
I agree. Well, I mean, All In was good, and but basically just like we just did, All In was overshadowed by the whole CM Punk thing. So maybe we move to All Out. We talk about All Out. I mean, what you want to do?
Well, I want to back things up a little bit and talk about All In for a second.
Okay.
Because there's something really funny to me that I've heard a couple times. And when I say this, let me preface this by saying there's a chance that someone that said this before might watch the podcast. And so I don't mean any heat or any disrespect with who I'm, the quote that I'm about to be talking about. But have you ever heard the old argument about what was the best match on WrestleMania 3? Has anyone asked you that question before?
I've heard about it.
Okay. What's your answer to that question, Chris?
It's going to be, if I'm not mistaken, WrestleMania 3. I got to make sure it's the right one. But I know it was a WrestleMania where Ricky Steamboat and Macho Man Randy Savage was the best match.
Right. So I've heard from wrestlers within the business. I've had this conversation with someone before where someone asked another wrestler what was the best match on WrestleMania 3, and they said Macho Man Randy Savage and Ricky Steamboat, because it was billed as one of the best matches of all time. WWE pushed it that way. But the wrestler asking the question said, "You're wrong. You want to know what the best match was on WrestleMania 3?
Well, the one that sold the tickets.
The one that sold the tickets.
Yeah. So you always can ask about what's the best, and this is why I say you got the best match, but of course you got to go the one with the best match don't have to be the main event.
Right.
So when you look at the main event can be different from the best match, in my personal opinion. So the best match was, that was the best match, but the main event sold the tickets.
Right.
So that's how I look at it. That's how I always say it. Yeah. Because you was on, some shows that we've done. You wasn't the main event, but you was the best match.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. But my point in saying that is you look at All In and the amount of tickets that they were able to sell. So all of these people that are saying MJF doesn't know how to work, the Young Bucks don't know how to work, Kenny Omega doesn't know how to work. The thing about that is beforehand, they did not promote this card based on a singular match.
They based it on the company.
They sold on the company.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think what that tells you is there's been, obviously it's been, 30 plus years since WrestleMania 3. But I think that signals a change in the business at that it wasn't the match that sold the tickets. It was the promotion. Mm-hmm. But I think you also have to look at who was at the top of the promotion leading into the show. And it's your Young Bucks, it's your Kenny Omegas, it's your MJF, it's your Adam Cole, it's Adam Page, it's those type guys. So for anyone that's saying, they don't know how to work or I don't like their style, this, that, and the other, I think you still have to look at they still sold the tickets.
Well, it's not about and this what and you and I also in the media business. It's not about who like them. It's about as far as people in the profession.
Right.
Because that's the difference. People in the profession who like them, it's about the viewers. I look at stuff all the time and I'll be like, man, it's horrible. However, they get season after season after season renewal, and guess what? I'm still watching it, even though I'm saying it's horrible.
Right.
So I'm generating ratings.
Right.
So who's the smart one? You know what I'm saying? I can look, man, I don't like this, but I'm gonna look at it next week. Man, why they keep getting worse and worse? Then I look at it again. Man, good grief. Why they do it? Well, we still watching it.
Right.
So when you look at that, they still winning.
Yeah.
They still winning. So to say you don't like a particular person, and of course, that's easy, especially for folks in the industry. Folks in the industry that says that because we're in the industry. So when we look at, if we're in a particular industry, of course we're more critical than the average viewer. But the average viewer, who are more than the people that's in the industry, those are people that buying tickets. Those are people that paying for subscriptions. So those are people that patronizing the advertisers that be part of the show or whatever. So so when people do that, it's, you're just talking now because I hate to say it don't even matter.
Right.
It don't matter what I say.
Yeah.
They got a gig.
Well, I care what you say, Chris.
Oh, thank you, John.
Of course. But yeah, I don't know. I just thought that was really interesting. Like, I'd like to hear, and this is the thing, I want to hear from our viewers, whether it's in YouTube on the comments or, our Facebook pages or whatever. I want to engage in this discussion about what the success of All In means for wrestling, because I think it does indicate a shift in the fact of, how tickets are sold, how pay-per-views are promoted, and the fact that it really was the AEW brand. Because I'm not trying to say MJF and Adam Cole was the greatest match of all time because they sold the most tickets. I watched the match and I liked it, but it wasn't the greatest match of all time. I don't think anybody's saying that. But I want to know what everybody else thinks as far as, where we're at right now.
Well, also you got to look at, too, the situation, too. Could they have sold that many tickets in the U.S.? You're looking at a place that was starving for pro wrestling.
Right.
And then so what it did was it gave a country the pride to go out there to say, look, we did this here. We sold the most tickets here. This was the biggest pro wrestling extravaganza, and it was held here.
Right.
So, of course, and it would be easy if it was WWE, because that's the giant, that's the big boy of the game. But to be able to take, someone new, a new kid on the block, 4 years old basically, and put them where they could do something like that. Now you got country pride and everybody, surrounding that. So when you look at that as well, you have to take that in consideration. It's like, when WWE go to Saudi Arabia, it's like that type of deal. So
right.
to be able to go there and do that now, it's like the country got country pride. Now they know they got them coming back next year.
Yeah.
So it could even be bigger. And so or the newness done went off and it could be smaller. So we'll see. But my thing is it's because of location. It was so many different dynamics that made that AEW event as successful ticket sale wise. What was the buy? Have you had a chance to see what the buy rate was on that?
Last I heard is it's probably going to end up somewhere between like 140 and like 180,000 for like pay-per-view buys.
Yeah.
And I mean that's all speculation. There's nothing finalized right now.
Okay, awesome.
Last I heard.
Okay. Well, I know you checking that stuff.
Yeah.
I just didn't throw that question. He had to research it.
Yeah, I try and keep up with it as much as I can. But so we'll get to All Out in a second, but to say also, I was able to go to the Dynamite, the last one before All In, which is the night that they taped, Collision and all of that. And the one thing that I will say as a takeaway from that show was, while AEW might not be super hot domestically here in the States, if you look at what they're doing, they're serving the audience that is buying the tickets.
Mm-hmm.
Because anytime, it was the go-home show for the big Wembley Stadium show. And so they were showing lots of video packages with Adam Cole and MJF and all of those, interactions. And every time that something would happen, they're showing the video package where Cole's holding up the belt like he's about to hit MJF. The people are gasping. And even though it's stuff that's already happened, they're like, oh my God, like what's Cole going to say to this? Because, they were doing the interview gimmick with Renee. And so they were like, how is Cole going to respond to this? And all these different things. And it reminded me of when Roman Reigns and Jey Uso were doing something. I think it was like SmackDown in like December. But you remember when they were like starting to do like the cracks in the bloodline, and they were doing like a heated promo, and I think it was Jey Uso was just like, I don't give a damn what the tribal chief says.
Mm-hmm.
And the second he said that, you just heard everybody in the building go, oh!
Mm-hmm.
Because it was like, oh my God, like we're seeing something happening. Because they were living and dying with that storyline.
Right.
And that's what it felt like live watching MJF and Adam Cole, was that people were living and dying with, what's going to happen, what's going next. We don't want to see them break up. All of these different things. There's so much emotion there. So I think historically, if you look at the wrestling business, it's like when an angle gets hot, it has to be hot for a little bit before you see it translate into merch sales and TV ratings and things like that. But to me, it feels like after the success of All Out and what we'll talk about in a second, or All In, and the success of All Out yesterday, I think that they're on the verge of starting to kind of catch fire again, because they've had the headlines for the last 2 weeks. I mean, you look, WWE had a pay-per-view on Saturday, Payback. I haven't heard a thing about Payback. I maybe you have, maybe your experience is different.
And the thing about it is, and when people talk about what's the word? Not exposure. Oh man, what they say all the time?
Sound it out, Chris.
Oh man, it is. It's gonna come to me in a minute, but AEW made headlines.
Right.
Even though it was negative headlines, they made headlines.
They were still the headline.
Right. And that, I don't care what WWE going, if it's not WrestleMania, CM Punk getting fired is not going to be trumped by anything.
Right.
So to be able to do that
and then you fire him before
Chicago.
You fire him before you go to Chicago on Friday. You fire him on Friday. You fire him on Saturday, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, you fire him on Saturday. You go live in Chicago on Saturday, and then you turn back and got a pay-per-view. You know, folks watch Saturday just to see what happened.
Right, yeah.
And then folks got ordered the pay-per-view just to see what was going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, so I believe personally that the ratings went up on Saturday. And I don't know yet. That's just me. And then I say the buy rates went up. Just because, you know, CM Punk is not there. You know, and then for the ones that the conspiracy guys like me saying, I think it's work or whatever. That's why we watching. I'm like, I'll watch it to the end till they say, we'll see you. And I'm like, he didn't show up. Because I was just, you know, I mean, because, you know, and so that worked for them, you know. So you just, it's just the way you look at it and whatever. So I mean, yeah, I mean, I know you had Payback, but was Roman Reigns on Payback?
No.
Okay, and Roman wasn't on Payback? No, I'm sorry.
Right.
No.
I think that was a big missed opportunity for WWE to catch a little bit of fire on their own, running a pay-per-view, you know, on the same weekend as All Out. I think if they had done something, they had a chance to kind of snatch the headlines a little bit, or at least put their name in the conversation.
Man,
but it's like
when CM Punk got fired, if CM Punk wouldn't have got fired, then, as matter of fact, when they had the whole situation at All In, the headlines were snatched.
Right.
And it was snatched for the whole week. Just for the investigation. Then when they fired him, oh man, it's like, you know, no one ain't searching WWE. We trying to see what's going on with CM Punk and Tony Khan and AEW. So I'm like, you know, yeah.
It was just interesting to me that they didn't try, though. You know, because to me it's like I would have at least wanted to like fire back something just to be like, hey guys, like we're still out here too, because I think. Yeah, I mean, it's been straight AEW headlines the last 2 weeks. So, I mean, I feel like you got to assert yourself a little bit.
Well, you got to look at it, and this from the business side. It's a long game. You know, that AEW CM Punk headline deal, that going to last for so long. Now, guess what? It's going to start to die unless you get some lawsuits or whatever. It's going to start to die because we done went in and out of Chicago. WWE, business. It's long game.
Right.
So it's like, yeah, they want to sprint, but we're in a marathon. So the bottom line is we can catch back up and do what we need to do and don't worry about it. So that's why and actually I commend WWE for not even trying to come back and say, well, no, don't scramble, don't do anything, keep doing what you're doing, because what you do works. So, and I'm an AEW guy, but what you do works. So don't go and do all that, because now you'll mess up the continuity of what you have. So don't you know. But then also that make you you're the big dog. You ain't desperate. So right. You know, and you'll hear people say, well, why they did? Well, you don't want to look like you're desperate. Y'all probably saw this table move just now, but with the green screen go look real funny. But
I was watching my coffee.
Yeah, you're like, oh yeah, I was like, I did that just now.
Yeah.
But you know, you don't want that. You don't want to do that, so it make you seem that you're desperate. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think we buried the lead for about 45 minutes or so now.
Okay.
There was an AEW pay-per-view last night, All Out from Chicago. Around 12,000 people that were there.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think about the show, Chris? Give me your overall thoughts, and then we'll go match by match for just a little bit.
Overall, the show to me was better than I expected. Like I think all the talent came together and put on one of the best shows of their lives. Because, you know, when you're losing the top ranking person in your company and the pay-per-view is in his, you know, hometown, you know, you could have easily went out there and muck it up. But they didn't. They went out there and they performed, and I'm like, they had some pretty good matches that I really enjoyed, including, you know, what I think was a potential match of the night, but other people might feel different.
What was that match, Chris?
Miro versus Powerhouse Hobbs.
Okay. All right, we'll get there in a second. Did you see the opener, the tag match, MJF and Cole versus Dark Order?
I got in late because I was at a shoot. I got in late, but I caught some of it. So I let you take the lead on that, and I make sure I come in when I saw the parts I saw.
So this is cheap plug for the podcast that'll be coming up hopefully next weekend if I'm able to set aside some time to record it. But I've been watching the N1 Victory Tournament from Pro Wrestling Noah over the last month or so. And I know you don't watch any Noah, Chris, but there's a guy called El Hijo de Dr. Wagner Jr. He's a luchador. He's grandson to Dr. Wagner.
Heard of the name.
Right.
Yes.
So he wrestles in Noah, and I was on another podcast called Gaijin a Go-Go. You're free to listen to that one wherever you can find it.
Similarly.
Yeah, check it out on Facebook. But I was talking at the tail end of the most recent one of those about how Dr. Wagner Jr. is the best house show wrestler I've ever seen, because all of his stuff is so cartoonishly big and so over the top and so emotive and expressive, even though he's got the mask on, that it's like you're watching a cartoon. Mm-hmm. And the opening match to All Out was as close to a Dr. Wagner Jr. match as you can get without it actually being a Dr. Wagner Jr. match. Because they were so over the top in everything they did. MJF and Cole are a fantastic team. The Dark Order, while they're not really built or pushed, when I was at the Collision taping the other week, they had an absolutely fantastic match with Action Andretti and Darius Martin, I think it was. Fantastic tag team match. They string together like a lot of just amazing offense where it's just snappy. And so they went in there with Cole and MJF, and I think the announcers even said something about it being like the Mega Powers tag team. It was like Hogan and Savage working together.
Yeah.
They did so many just crazy things. They went, for the double clothesline. As soon as they pointed to each other and yelled double clothesline, every single person in that building was yelling double clothesline along with them. So there was so much heat for the match. They just did simple stuff. They did the injury angle where MJF got hit with the chair.
That's when I came in and was able to jump on because I saw he was going to the back. I didn't know what happened. And I was like, oh man. Then of course I liked the whole 2-on-1 deal that they had with Cole versus actually 2-on-3 if you count Evil Uno. That was pretty good. And I was like, wow, how they gonna? Because for a minute I'm like, nah, no, they're not just gonna take the titles off them.
Right.
But because when I look at that, then that could lead to some dissension in the team.
Right. Lead to a split.
But they didn't. But I'm gonna tell you, I was rooting for the Dark Order because everything that they've been through and
fantastic team too.
Yeah, and just think about I forgot how many years ago it was when everybody look at the negative when they was doing the fight and they were dusting whatever. But I mean, they actually. The bill when they first came in, if they could have kept that going, it would have been great.
Right.
And then, of course, with the late Brody Lee, when he came in, I was like, okay, yeah, they can go somewhere. But first of all, I'm glad to see that they're still around.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm glad to see that they're still around because they're an excellent team, man.
Oh, fantastic.
The stuff that they can do together is amazing, and I love it. But yeah, that match, my between the double clothesline, the kangaroo kick from Max was amazing.
Yeah, it was a great match, so much fun. When MJF came back and they did all the double team spots and then built to the finish well. Like you knew where it was going, but they were able to create like enough reasonable doubt that you're like, hey, the Dark Order could actually win this. And I think that's really important to be able to keep some of that energy. So, but yeah, it was a fantastic match. Then you move to Samoa Joe versus Shane Taylor. That was one of my favorite matches on the show. Number 2 for me.
Because and I even love the commentators. This is not gonna go long.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
These two big men. This is not going long at all.
Oh, it was so good.
And it was like it didn't, but they were just going at it, and I was like, the power between the both of them and how it worked. And what I love about the commentaries was when they were telling the story about Sean Taylor and saying, you know, Shane Taylor, excuse me, if he wouldn't I was thinking about Shawn Michaels. Played off. But anyway, when they was telling the story about Shane Taylor and saying if he wasn't watching Ring of Honor, he could have went down a wrong road or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow. And to still be able to commentate.
Right, yeah.
And tell the story and don't get sidetracked. I was like, those are real professionals there. I mean, yeah.
Well,
hard hitting.
A couple things about it. One, I was a little disappointed when they did the angle with MJF and Samoa Joe because I thought for a half second that was going to end up being like the secret main event to the show. I was like, they're going to do the pull apart and then, you know, Orange Cassidy and Moxley's going to finish and MJF's going to be the biggest babyface in the world and say, it's Chicago, we're doing a world title match. Samoa Joe, get your ass out here. I ain't waiting until Wednesday. And when they didn't do that, I was a little bit disappointed. But I think that's just, you know, personal thing for me.
When Samoa Joe pushed MJF, I thought about Jeff Jarrett when he pushed. Oh my God, I just watched?
Beetlejuice?
No, the country singer.
Oh, Toby Keith?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's what I think about. And I will always say that's the most disrespectful moment in pro wrestling history, and I love it. Thank you, Double J, Jeff Jarrett.
Right.
It just you have. I was like, so when I thought about that, I thought about what he did, you know, and I was like, wow, and just kept on walking.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah. That was crazy.
Yeah. I also want to say I think Shane Taylor is in the running for, personally, one of the most improved guys that I've ever seen in wrestling. Because when he first started, when he first started with Ring of Honor, I was not a big fan. I don't think many people were big fans of him. He was a lower card guy that was just sort of a heavy, you know, somebody that you could put in to get beat that looked impressive but didn't, you know, have a whole lot of movement. But he has lost a lot of weight. He has done a lot of training. And everything about him has gotten so much better. His strikes, those punches that he was throwing, I still don't know how he did those punches. The way he was going in, and you were getting the pop sound with it, but it wasn't like he was punching like the side of the neck. It wasn't like he was doing one of these. It's like he was firing in the shots, but it was making the click sound like every time. His strikes looked good. He was moving fast. He caught Joe on the dives. I am in love with Shane Taylor. He was perfect in that match. Which, if you want to just go ahead and jump ahead to the Powerhouse Hobbs and Miro match, that Samoa Joe and Shane Taylor was what Miro and Powerhouse Hobbs should have been. I didn't like the match. Chris, tell me why you liked the match, and then I'll tell you why I didn't like it.
You know, maybe I liked the match because how the fans were involved in the match. And it to me was two big guys. They was slapping me. Which that's all you heard the fans saying.
Right.
And my thing is, and all jokes aside, we I don't know how long Haas has been wrestling, but of course Miro been wrestling for a while. And to me, maybe Miro made him look real good, and then how they started trying each other moves on each other and stuff like that really just I just liked it. I don't know why. I just liked it, and I thought it was just one of the best. I thought it was a show stealer. I mean, I really did. And all the way down to even though they said, well, we saw it coming, all the way down to when they got up, shook hands, and then of course Powerhouse attacked them. I was hoping that they actually stayed together, because think about that being a tag team.
Yeah,
you know, that would have been great to me.
So you're done?
Oh, and then Lana. Oh my God.
Okay.
Lana came out.
Did something for you?
That would made the show one of the top matches. That was Lana, and at the end, then Miro didn't appreciate it.
Yeah.
I want to see where that story goes.
I liked the match up until about 7 minutes in. and then they
You can tell he's a worker because he be counting 7 minutes in. I'm just watching the match. Go ahead.
After like 7 or 8 minutes, I was just sitting there going, good God, get this thing over with. Because at 7 minutes in, they had already hit each other a bunch of times. They had already hit like a bunch of big moves. I like the way they started out, before the bell even rang, straight into the collar and elbow tie-up.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, like I'm hooked. I was into it.
And the commentators even acknowledge that too.
Right.
They're like, yeah.
And then it just went straight downhill after that to me. Because after 7 minutes, I had seen them hit each other as many times as I needed to see it. I had seen all the spine busters I wanted to see. I wasn't excited for the match coming in. I thought it would be fine, but I thought it would be short. And then they ended up going 15 minutes.
Well, we got to look at it now. When Samoa Joe and Shane Taylor, for that to go short, okay.
Perfect match.
But Shane Taylor's not. I mean, he's on Ring of Honor, so it's not like he's on the Big Show.
Right.
The Big. God, did I just say that? but by Powerhouse Hobbs being on, on AEW main roster of the Big Show, we know Miro more than likely was gonna win, but you can't just. I don't want to say bury it, but you can't make it where he lose quick.
Right.
So they had to stretch that match out. They had no choice but to stretch it out because if either one would have lost, they had to make sure that they both stay strong. So that's how I look at it. So, that's why it went that long. I mean, if they wasn't, because they trying to build Powerhouse. So if they wasn't trying to build them, then quick 5 minute, cool, catch them with something, and I can't wait till I just said something, but I can't wait till we get to a particular match because I just thought about it. But you know what I'm saying? You catch it with something, then you hit them, knock them out, boom, you done. But that's why it went 15 minutes because they had to keep. They want to make something out of Powerhouse. Of course, he was gonna lose, and of course, people don't do Broadways no more. Right. So that deal with because I was even thinking that they would go to what was the time limit?
I don't know if they announced one beforehand.
Yeah, because see, if it'd been like a 15-minute time limit, they could just say ding 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 and end it, and then they just brawl to the back card today. But they want to have a definite winner, and that's what you got. So
I would have been fine with a 10-minute time limit draw.
Yeah, no, that'd been fine.
And the one thing, and we'll back up and go to Luchasaurus and Darby Allin in just a second. But the thing to me that stuck out as to why I didn't enjoy the match was if you notice the people chanting meat, 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 holy meat, meat forever, all of that. To me, once we got to that point, it felt like the audience was trying to entertain itself. So it felt like they had already checked out of the match, and they were doing it to just pass the time and try and enjoy, something that was going on for way too long.
Yeah.
But I mean, hey, different flavors of ice cream. That's what makes the world go round. So
that's right.
So speaking of a different flavor of ice cream, Darby Allin and Luchasaurus. What'd you think about that one?
Darby Allin, Luchasaurus.
Did you get to see it?
I watched part of it because I had a call. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm a busy guy. And this is what I got to say about it. I love that. You know what I was waiting for?
What's up?
I don't know why I was waiting for Edge to come out there.
Yeah.
I was. But when you talk about that match, I like how they was going with the whole thing with, and that's Nick Wayne.
Yeah, Nick Wayne.
Yeah, I like how he was outside and everything and engaging with Christian, and then the part where he was going to do the Concerto on Nick Wayne, and then Darby was up there. They're like, well, I'm going to hit the coffin drop, but then of course it didn't happen.
Right.
But that was one of those things. That was one of those matches that I was like, I wish I could remember it. I watched some of it, but I got sidetracked. But anytime that Darby goes out there and have a match, he's on point.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And his selling is amazing. And I really thought that he was going to win. I mean, I really thought he was going to win.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that title has been tossed around so much, so now it really got to stay on someone for it to get any kind of meaning to it, in my personal opinion. Because, we had the whole deal where, what's our boy name?
Scorpio Sky?
No, we had Scorpio, but the big dude that was with
Powerhouse Hobbs?
Not Powerhouse. The other one. That was with
Wardlow.
Yeah, Ward. Win, lost, win, lost, win, lost. You know what I'm saying?
I was going to say, I think we kind of proved your point right there in the fact that we couldn't figure out who you were talking about.
Right. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like, win, lost, win. I'm like, y'all, they kind of, to me, they buried the title.
Right, yeah.
Now you got to bring it back up. Now we got a dinosaur to resurrect it.
Right. Yeah, I'll keep it short because we're going long, but I thought it was a fantastic match. I think for a match where the champion outweighed the challenger by like over 100 pounds.
Oh, stop! And then when our boy in the mask, I forgot his name, try to turn around and correct Jim Ross.
Excalibur?
Yes, because Jim Ross said it's not many times that you have that, and then Excalibur came back and said, well, he beat Samoa Joe and this. I was like, man, shh. You go back, he correcting Jim Ross.
I mean, I get where he's coming from because I think that is like a valuable like point to make, because then you're telling people that Darby has a chance. Because if you're trying to build up a guy as a challenger, you want to make him look credible, right? And so bringing up something that like, yeah, it doesn't happen often, JR, but Darby has done it before. That kind of thing is like, well, maybe he's got some type of chance.
Well, maybe I'm just on Jim Cornette's side on this. Just don't correct him. Jim old and everything, man. Don't do this. That's disrespect.
Right.
Yeah. Keep your mask and your mouth shut.
Right.
He wrote that line. I didn't. So
right.
If you see him in the street,
we ain't even got a teleprompter, Mr. Chris. It's off the cuff. But no.
Go ahead.
As far as a match where the champion outweighs the challenger by 100 pounds, I think the way they worked it was about as good as they could have.
Mm-hmm.
Because there wasn't any point where Darby was on offense that I was like, oh, this little guy shouldn't be beating up the big guy. It's like he was on him from the opening bell, and he was dodging strikes and just all over him. So, I mean, I think it looked really good if you're going to do a match with that big of a size difference.
Well, and that's why Darby Allin's style is his style complements that.
Right.
With him coming from anywhere, hitting
right.
any kind of move, doing anything, putting his body up, risking his damn life, however you want to look at it. That works because you can be the big guy when you do all that. Like they say, throw caution to the wind. You can be the big man when you're doing all that. But if you're trying to play it, you can't play it safe and beat him.
Right.
You're gonna get ran over. So by him not playing it safe, yeah.
So after that, we had the Miro Powerhouse Hobbs match.
We already talked about it.
We already talked about it.
Second best match on the card.
So then after that, we had Chris Statlander, Ruby Soho.
That was a good match.
It was a good match, and to me, I liked it because it felt like they understood where I was coming from as a viewer, where I wasn't super excited for some of the matches on the show, and this one was one that I was like, it's kind of there. I'm not going to skip it or anything.
But they delivered, though.
But they delivered. They got in, they did their stuff, they did it quick, and they were able to keep my interest for the time that they had.
And what got me was at the end, when, of course, Sorrell's going to let her get the spray and all that good stuff. And then Tony Storm came from underneath the ring. And for a moment I said, is that, oh man, what's the girl that just left WWE? Oh man, I just had it on the tip of my tongue. The girl that just got fired. I left.
Which one?
God dang it! Y'all give me a second.
Just
you know her name was Ric Flair at one time.
Oh, Lacey Evans.
Yeah, I said, is that Lacey Evans come from under there? Because it kind of came out like
she had the
curls and kind of with the pearl. I'm saying like the Southern Belle type deal.
Yeah.
I like, what's going on with this?
Yeah.
Do you know?
Well, no, it was Tony Storm. I don't know. I mean,
I know it was Tony, but do you know what possibly going on with that?
I assumed she woke up that morning and was just like, I'm just gonna dress like this today.
And I'm like, is this Lacey?
Yeah.
I can't wait to see how this pay off.
Well, that makes one of us. I mean, I will say the one thing that I didn't like about it was the way the announcers like downplayed that angle, because I mean, they were just like, well, there's been dissension within the Outcasts for a little while now, and it looks like they're excommunicating Ruby, and that was it. Like, they didn't say like, oh my God, Tony Sorbs turned on Ruby Soho. I can't believe it.
Yeah.
It was just like, well, looks like the Outcasts are done.
But Saraya is still with Ruby.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm trying to...
It doesn't make any sense.
It don't make any sense. I'm like, no, she the one did... Next match.
What was the next match? It was, it was the strap match. Danielson and Starks.
Yes. Now, you know what? What got me was, I didn't have a chance to look at Collision. So I had no idea.
You thought it was going to be Ricky Steamboat
yeah,
versus Ricky Starks.
And you know what? And I say this. Now I'm gonna say this. When it, and we just talked about this about match of the most important match and the match of the night or whatever. I feel that this was one of them situations that they called an audible because of CM Punk not being there. So you bring in this whole situation with Bryan Danielson. I actually had time to watch a little bit of the media scrum, and Bryan Danielson always straight shooting whatever.
Yeah. And
he even said, "Oh yeah, I worked last night, whatever." But just believe me, he's saying just because since we're here and this and that, let y'all know there's a lot of smoke and mirrors. He said if y'all paid attention, I didn't even throw a strike in my hand.
Yeah.
And stuff they did and whatever. And I'm like, that goes to show you the confidence that they even have in Ricky Starks.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And the type of worker that Ricky Starks is to be able to go out there and protect your one of your top players in the company.
Yeah.
So, because I remember watching Ricky Starks when he was in NWA Hollywood, and I was like, when I saw him then, I was like, this cat got something.
Yeah.
So when to do that and to see the brutality and all that happened, and for Bryan to say, I was nowhere close to being injured, being hurt or whatever. I was always safe, man. That was something else. And I, like I said, saw it in the media scrum. But that match, man, it was brutal.
That was the moment where I was like, okay, I'm glad I bought this show. Because, yeah. I mean, you can look at the card up and down, and it's like there wasn't a whole lot to be excited about. And I wasn't necessarily looking forward to the match coming in. I figured it would be good, but I had no idea it was going to be that good.
That was, yeah.
The first strap, when Starks was sitting on the top rope, and Bryan welded up and went like this, and it sounded like a gun went off.
Yeah.
And everybody is screaming. I screamed in my living room. It was amazing. I don't know what the strap was made out of, because usually they. And I'm
talking about, especially when they hitting the felt.
Yeah,
I'm like, hey man.
Yeah, you're telling me. I mean, because usually they do like a worked, like faux leather or something like that. And so the sound is a little different. It'll make a good pop, but it doesn't have the weight of like a leather belt, so it doesn't hurt as bad. I don't know what that strap was made out of.
But it was good.
Whatever it was good, because I don't know how it felt, but how it sounded was amazing. The blood that they did, everything. It's one thing, like the way Danielson blades, I don't know if you noticed, but when he first came up bleeding, he came up bleeding from like just this little bitty of a spot, and it just covered his entire face. That's interesting to me, because you see some guys when they blade, they do like the whole forehead, and that's how they get all of it. But it's like Danielson just like poked himself, like it was just a little tiny thing.
But basically, that's all you really. I mean, to be honest, I mean, I know some folks want to do more, but that's really all you got to do. I mean, you take a couple of aspirins, you do that and whatever, and your adrenaline pumping and all that. So yeah. But that was an awesome match.
That was a match that made it worth it for me at that point. The match that did not make it worth it for me, I hate to say it because I love Eddie Kingston. But Eddie Kingston, Katsuyori Shibata versus Claudio Castagnoli, Wheeler Yuta. 15:55 here it says on Wikipedia. I once again feel like that was a 10-minute match that went about 5-6 minutes too long. What'd you think about it, Chris?
Well, to me, I thought it was a good match, and this is what I was talking about. It was a good back and forth match. They did the thing. I'm an Eddie Kingston fan, so
I am too. Diehard Eddie Kingston fan.
But with Claudio won with a European uppercut, and the commentator said, "We never saw it." They're like, "That's it."
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, my girlfriend had just gotten home, and we were talking. So I was kind of one eye on her, one eye on the match, and back and forth. And we're talking, and then he hits the uppercut and gets the pin, and I just, pardon my language, maybe we can bleep this out in post, but I just went, "What the?"
Your hands all out there too. So
yeah.
We got to do a whole lot of bleeping because he just went all out there. I know his hand could be cut off. I probably, it's green screen, so we probably gonna show that too.
But and she was like, "What is it?" And I was like, "He just lost to an uppercut." And she was like, "Okay," because it didn't mean anything to her.
Yeah, but be like,
I was like, "Did I miss something?" I looked over at her for 10 seconds, and then it was just, and then that was the it. And I was
European uppercut.
It was like, I won't even say it was like a Rampage main event or a Collision main event. It was like an opener on Rampage that ended with an uppercut. I didn't like to see how they did Eddie Kingston like that. I thought the match went too long. I feel like it was sandwiched in the middle of a lot of better stuff, so I was disappointed.
Well, they had to do something to bring it down because the strap match was so good that you don't want that competing with the main event.
Yeah, true, but good lord.
Oh, I forgot. No, we got more to. I forgot about the Young Bucks. Anyway, okay, keep going.
You forgot Kenny Omega and
I forgot
Konosuke Takeshita.
Oh yeah. Oh, I didn't even text you about that. I couldn't believe
that Kenny Omega lost.
It's one of the things that was what was good. You know what I'm saying, to see that, and when you got other talent that they put over, but I'm still was like, wow. And then when he hit him with that knee and that was it, I was like, wow, uppercut, not knee.
Yeah, I thought it made the most sense because especially when you're doing a show with not a lot of marquee value, the fans want to see a happening, and Kenny Omega taking a singles loss to somebody that's on the rise, that's something that's going to make the people feel like they got their money's worth.
Yeah.
Because you saw something happen. Now there's something in your mind of, is Kenny Omega still at that same level? Mm-hmm. Takeshita, he's on Omega's level now. So I thought it was a good booking decision to go ahead with that. And I thought the match was fantastic. Move by move, everything looked great. It's Kenny Omega match.
Yeah.
The German suplex where he landed on his head early on, that was scary.
Yeah, I thought.
But when he rolled out, though, and I love the way Omega sells sometimes, but when he was on the apron and his eyes were just, bugging out of his head, I was like, he's okay. That's a Kenny Omega sell, so. Hey, sorry about that interruption, everybody. We were getting, a bunch of sponsorship calls came through. A bunch of people love the podcast and want to sponsor us, so Chris had to take a couple business calls right there. He's a very busy guy.
That's right.
But as I was going to say, I'm looking forward to trying to do a podcast next weekend, talking about the finals, the N1 for Pro Wrestling Noah. Mm-hmm. And then there's a big DDT show next weekend. And, Takeshita is going to be on that show. It's going to be in a tag team match over in what used to be his home promotion. Mm-hmm. But I'll give you a guess. Do you want to take a shot at what the main event to the show that Takeshita is going to be on is next week? Man. You're never going to get it, but
is Daniel Brian Danielson, is he involved?
No.
Okay.
You might only know one or two of the people that are involved in it.
All right, so I'm going to say Booker T. Armstrong versus Chad Peterson.
No. The main event to next week's DDT show is going to be Yoshitatsu Toy Kojima, and Atsushi Onita from FMW in the 90s versus Jun Akiyama, Sanshiro Takagi, and Yusuke Okada in a, I quote, time-lagged, scramble, bunkhouse, current explosion, 6-man tag death match. Takeshita is going to be on that show next weekend in Japan. Yoshitatsu and Atsushi Onita teaming up in a 6-man explosion death match.
He'll be watching that show.
So make sure to stay tuned in to the Drop Down Leapfrog Dropkick Wrestling Podcast YouTube channel so you can hear the wonderful conversation that we'll have about that.
Yeah.
So anyways, that takes us to the semi-main event of the evening, the 8-man tag team match, Bullet Club Gold versus Young Bucks and FTR. I thought it was one of the best 8-man tags I've ever seen in my entire life. I thought it ruled from start to finish. Super kicks, shatter machines, FTR and the Bucks. I thought it was great.
Could they coexist? And they did. They did. They did good. But I really, I really like Bullet Club Gold because I think it really gave golly, what they damn name? The Guns. It gives the Guns the opportunity to get better and shine.
And I think they have.
Yeah, and they have. And the more I see them, they keep improving. They keep improving. They keep improving. And especially when I don't know the brothers' names, but one of them hit Famous on the outside.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it looked real good. And I'm just like I'm glad that they're getting the opportunity to really get better. I know Dad put the belts on them earlier and all that good stuff for the whole FTR little deal, but I think they have the opportunity to really be something in this business.
Absolutely.
Whether it's with AEW or after they contract and they go to WWE, if they use them correctly, I really feel that they have it, and they just have to continue to grow and get better. I've never liked Switchblade because he's a good guy. I like him. He's a good wrestler, and I just never liked him. I just hate his character, which means he's doing a good job.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And then when I look at Juice, I say, is this Brian Pillman?
Oh yeah.
The unhinged Brian Pillman?
And he was over last night.
Yes.
He's from Illinois, so
Yeah.
I think a little hometown cooking had something to do with it.
Yeah.
But he's been getting over a lot.
Yeah. He and my thing about him, it's like he could take a pin or take a loss, and because I've seen it, and it doesn't affect his momentum.
Right. Well, he's got this quality where he's playing into it so much that he's just wild, that he's just a crazy guy. And so it's like you never really beat him. You hold him down for 3 seconds, but then he gets up and he's back on his rampage again.
Right.
So it's like you can put him down, but you can't beat him.
Right. Yeah. So I mean that was a good match, and then of course when the Young Bucks and FTR had to work together, one from each team work together and do the moves.
Right.
I think that was good. When they all started doing the super kicks, I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty good as well. But but then when they lost, I was like, yeah. So I was like, yeah. Then everybody to where's my bad? I didn't get there on time.
Right, yeah.
This, that,
but
whatever.
it wasn't like they were like tearing at each other.
Yeah.
What happened out there? It was like, man, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Didn't get there in time and all that.
Yeah.
So I'm
it was
ready.
like a bunch of professionals talking about it.
Yeah. It is like,
Yeah.
That's just how I feel about that. Like, no blowing up. Everybody just calm. Okay.
Well, I like that. I like the slow burn kind of storytelling.
Yeah, because that's what it is, yeah.
They could do a lot of stuff with it. I mean, you could, have them get together for a little bit and then break up later on. You could have them, run together for a little bit. There's a lot of potential to it. So, and I thought it was a lot of fun.
And then the heat that the Bucks would get at time. But then they come back and take it right back from the fans, and the fans had to come back and respect them.
Right,
Because they, boo! Then they do some moves, and all of a sudden my man did that like, yeah! I'm like, yeah. That was pretty cool.
It looks like the Young Bucks were having a lot of fun out there.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they were. Just everything that's happened, I feel like the CM Punk thing probably is a weight off of their shoulders.
Yeah.
That they're like, okay, we're able to go out there and focus on our performance and just have matches now and not have to think about something, in the back of their minds the whole time. So
It's a work. Punk is not gone. Listen to me. It's a work. Punk is not gone. He's coming back. Okay. Keep going.
All right. Well, we'll see if that plays out. But what did play out was Orange Cassidy and Jon Moxley in the main event. Jon Moxley is a certified Hall of Famer.
Yes.
The fact that you can put that man in there with luchadors, you can put him in a stadium stampede, you can put him in any type of match that you want to put him in, and he is going to have a good match. He's going to be a standout. He's going to catch your eye. He sells tickets. He puts eyes on the product. He represents the product whenever he does interviews, media appearances. I don't think you can ask for anything more from a wrestler than what Moxley gives.
It's not a better ambassador. And they said it last night, and of course we've said it, and everybody said it. He's had to put the company on his back and on his shoulders over and over and over.
And he's never let anybody down.
Never let anybody down. And even with the promo that he did on Orange Cassidy, he put Orange over and said, "Now don't let us down."
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I mean, I know a lot of people don't, but to me, Orange Cassidy was a different guy last night. And the way he worked last night from start to finish was amazing. And one of my favorite parts is when he went into his little gimmick, but then went out there and started kicking ass.
Yeah.
That was real good. And and so that was one of them times that when you lost, you got over.
Oh, absolutely. I think he got over more in losing than what he would have done if he had actually won.
Yes. And I think the commentary team did a great job with that because, they built how long he's been defending it, how he carried it.
Like 31 defenses.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, of course, and not only that, but he really built that to a quality second tier title to the world's title.
It feels like the Intercontinental Championship did in WWE at a time where it was really hot.
Yeah.
It feels like
Pedro Morales, Don Morales, all them.
Or even like early 90s, like Bret Hart and like British Bulldog, ironically enough, stuff like that. Like it feels like a title that people want to have, and especially with Moxley holding it now too.
Yeah.
It's like they can do a lot of stuff with that title.
Yeah, you can. So, naming it the International from the Transatlantic, something.
All Atlantic.
All Atlantic, whatever. Changing it to the International makes it even feel more prestige.
Right.
And that spot last night, that the main event with Orange being in it, I mean, you can't. Like I said earlier, that pay-per-view delivered last night, and like we were saying when we was texting each other, especially with no real bill.
Right.
So basically, they don't put on back-to-back pay-per-views with no bill. I mean, and it was good, and especially last night, because like I said, with the whole situation with CM Punk, they knew the eyes was on them.
Right.
And they had to come back with something strong. So, and they did, and they delivered. With Bryan Danielson coming back, doing that when he's ahead of schedule.
Right. Yeah.
And that way he was talking about, he said, yeah, you're ahead of schedule. Yeah, we did a lot of stuff to make sure everything was fine. So when you look at that, I hope people really look at AEW and what they accomplished the past 2 weeks, especially this week with the whole thing going on with Phil Brooks, because no, y'all CM Punk. I think that it took a lot to get over that situation, because I mean, it could have went downhill. I mean, everything could have went downhill, but it didn't. So.
Well, I agree, Chris. I agree with everything that you said. I thought the match was fantastic. I thought the visual of Orange Cassidy standing in the middle of the ring, covered in blood, as the pay-per-view went off the air, and the people chanting for him.
Yeah.
I think that solidifies him as a guy that you can do something with in pay-per-view main events in the future if you want to go that direction. So, and yeah, it's been a hot 2 weeks for AEW, and I look forward to seeing how they're going to go forward from this.
Yeah, and I really can't wait to hear the podcast with Jim Cornette, because I know he'd be on top of Orange Cassidy, he'd be on top of Moxley a lot. But I mean, I just want to see how the podcast that he do when he talk about them two last night. I'm waiting to see it, cause I'm a big Jim Cornette fan. But I'm like, come on, give him a little nod, give him a little something.
Yeah,
you know, you can take something away, but just give him a little something. That's all I'm looking for.
Right. Well, and that's what we were trying to do on this podcast too. You know, just give him a little something.
Give him a little something.
Give him a little something. Take a little something away.
Yeah. Go ahead, Powerhouse House, match of the night.
Yeah. Well, you know, we hit a double clothesline a couple minutes ago, and there was a double pin, and you said, "I want 5 more minutes," and I said, "No, Chris, we're going till we get a winner in Albany." So, and I think we did. I think we got it. We got it. So, to everybody, thanks for watching.